Do subscribe to the channel iMobi Talk and press the bell icon next to it for getting updates and infos for the latest smartphones. Hi friends, this is Pradeep. Today I'll be talking about the most important part of the phone, the processor. It is also known as the heart of the phone and is also the most expensive component of the phone. Do check out the video on my left for the famous Qualcomm Snapdragon processor ad. And of course, do stay tuned to this video because I'll be explaining the 5 components which determines the quality of a good processor. Stay tuned. This is Pradeep and you're watching iMobi Talk.
A dragon that's smarter, more advanced, can multitask and doesn't waste power. This summer, a dragon is coming. Not to a theater, not to an enchanted little village. Nope, this dragon is coming to your phone.
Hilarious.
Well, technically, in your phone. Make sure your next
Okay,
phone
get
has
inside
the
the phone.
blockbuster speed and performance hundreds of millions already love. Make sure it has a Snapdragon processor.
I hope you like the information of the video. So let's get started. A processor does a lot of functioning in the phone, right from opening the camera to clicking photos to playing games to watching videos. Of course, this is a part of the GPU again, which is a part of the processor. A lot of things which will not function properly if the processor is of not good quality. So not only that, also the functioning of the battery, the efficiency of the battery, the heating of the phone, everything is directly dependent to the processor. Processor which consumes a lot of power, gets heated soon, consumes the battery, and also the efficiency of the phone reduces the efficiency of the phone as well. So keep that in mind that the processor is very important, and let's just go ahead and find out the 5 important components which determines the efficiency and quality of the processor. This is Pradeep and you're watching iMobi Talk. Understanding technology of processor is a little complex, so especially for non-techies. So what I'll do is I'll try to simplify it as much as possible, and in this entire video I'll be speaking about the 5 different components which are very important for considering a good processor for the phone. The 5 different components are design size, speed, core, architecture, and GPU. So these 5 components I will be speaking in brief, and finally at the end I will be comparing the 2 important and famous brands which supplies processors to most of the phones that we use daily and today. So let's get started. Now, design size is basically the size of the areas of the processor, the small areas which allow the data transfer from one section to another. As of now, the best currently till date, the best processors having the smallest size in the design size is that of Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 and of the Exynos 9 produced by the Samsung, Exynos 9 Octa 8895. So just remember that the smaller the size of the design, the better it is. 10 nanometers is the size of both the processors that I just discussed, and maybe in the future more smaller version will come. So as time keeps on going, the size keeps on reducing more and more. The smaller the size, the more easy it is for the data to move from one end to another, and that's why this design size is important. A core is the most publicized part of a processor of a phone. So it's whenever we go out to check a phone and to check the processor of the phone that we are going to buy, we always consider that the higher the core of the processor, the better it is. But this is completely a wrong notion. To honestly tell you, a higher core of a processor does not determine the goodness or the good quality of a processor. For example, an octa core, which is of course considered better than a quad core, but this isn't true if the quad core has a better build structure, like the architecture as well as the design size, if these are good in that quad core, then the phone which has an octa core and does not have a good design size and arm structure may not perform better than the one which has a quad core. So keep that in mind, that it's not just that the higher the core the better it is, it's also the other things in comparison which determines the goodness of a processor. Okay, now we are seeing a lot of brands who builds processor and showcases a higher core size like that of a Deca core and so on and so forth, but that does not ensures that the processor is really good. So a processor which has a combination of all the 5 factors which I discussed in this video, or I'm going to discuss it further, has to be considered before you go for a good processor, and core is just one of them. Architecture is basically the design and the structure on which the entire processor is made on. The most famous company which provides this architect or the initial design to the famous brands like the Qualcomms and the Mediatek is none other than ARM. So ARM is the only design providing, they provide licenses basically to all these companies like processor manufacturing companies like Qualcomm and Mediatek. Now I'm sure over the phone boxes and covers and on the laptops you have seen written things like 1.8 GHz, 2 GHz, 1.5 GHz. What are these? This is basically the speed at which the laptop or the phone performs or functions. It is also known as the clock speed. Okay, so this is basically the speed at which the phone changes from one app to another or from one function to another. If there is any lag, if we open an app and it takes time to change and go to another app, then that means that the phone is slow and the gigahertz speed is less. So the more the speed, the better it is. The phone is performing better if it has more numbers and more gigahertz. So if it is 1.5 and 2 gigahertz, 2 gigahertz is way much better than a 1.5. Okay, so the more the number, the better it is. GPU is basically the enhanced version of the graphics card that we installed in the CPUs that we used to use earlier. So basically a GPU is like predefined, it's pre-installed in most of the processors that we are available in the market and are being installed in phones. So the most famous GPUs are the Exynos, used by the famous processor manufacturer Qualcomm, and the NVIDIA and a few others. So graphics is mostly determined by the GPU. Graphics is mostly used when we play games or we watch videos where any application which involves a lot of colors and a lot of movements of colors. So graphics, all these things are determined mostly by a good GPU installed in a good processor. The 3 famous manufacturers of processors, which are the largest suppliers of processors on almost all the mobile phones that are being used today, are number 1, the Qualcomm Snapdragon processors. The Snapdragon series from Qualcomm is considered as one of the best processors available in the market, because they use the ARM architecture and also they input their own knowledge and their own contribution to making the processor even better. Okay, so all the high-end phones, all the expensive phones, almost costing more than 15,000, they always insert Snapdragon processors in them. The second one is the Exynos processors produced by the Samsung, but Exynos is only restricted to Samsung phones, because I don't know any other phone which are using Exynos. Maybe they are, but as far as my knowledge is concerned, I know only Samsung uses Exynos processors. The third one is the Mediatek processors. Mediatek is not very famous or known as a very good manufacturer of processors, because the quality of the processors are of substandard quality, and most of the low-end and budget phones install Mediatek processors. One of the reasons for their substandard quality is because the architecture on which they build is ARM. Of course, they use ARM also, but they don't input their own contribution to make the processor even better. Okay, so it's just the architecture they use, and they insert all that is required for making the processor, and that's it. They just install it, and it does not have a good longevity. So most of the phones which have Mediatek in them are not long lasting, and the longevity is a question for these phones having Mediatek. So I would say Qualcomm Snapdragon series are the best processors available in the market. So if you go for a phone, always check if it is a Qualcomm Snapdragon processor. If you feel the video was informative, do hit the like button so that it motivates me and I keep on making such informative videos. Please do subscribe to the channel. This is Pradeep and you're watching iMobi Talk.